Bradley Carpenter, he's on your right, the four-color rally player, against Owen Turtenwald, world number 1. 11-0 off camera, 0-3 on it. He's looking to break that streak at just the right time.
Right. If he could break that streak and just keep it up for the rest of the tournament, that's clearly where he wants to be. Definitely the most important match of the event. You know, this is all or nothing right here. Well, I guess not nothing, but, you know, it's the top 8 or not the top 8. It's your tournament life.
Exactly. Yeah, so if we look through the standings, how it's going to work out, it's pretty simple. The 4 players who drew, this is Todd Anderson, Andrew Funkhauser, Ray Perez, and Robert Wright. They are locked for top 8. We have 4 matches, straight win-and-ins for top 8. And we have a 5th match that if the tiebreakers bend a specific way could knock one of those 4 out. It does mean that 1 player at 12-3 is going to miss.
Okay.
Maybe 2.
Tight race.
And those tiebreakers will come up, but this is 4-color rally mirror. These players with great breakers, they will not be the one to miss. This one's safe. Winner is in, loser is out. Easy as that. In the main deck between the 2 players, we have nearly identical deck lists. There's 1 murderous cut in the main for Carpenter.
Okay, not huge implications for this matchup. There's going to be some random situations where you get to tag a creature and win on the board, though for the most part, it's not great.
Now, he's actually done something which I've heard players talk about. Bradley has cut down to 3 copies of Rally the Ancestors in his main deck, Owen with the full set. Now, I know there are matchups where frequently these players board this card out, but in the mirror, how's that going to affect him?
In game 1, it's somewhat problematic. I think in the mirror you end up boarding out some number of copies just because there's a lot of Dispel Wars going on. Though in the main deck there's no Dispels for either player, so you want to be able to get that rally combo kill online.
All right, so we start the game here. Owen on the play on 6 cards. We'll start on Windswept Teeth. Brad Carpenter, he's on the draw. He's on 5 cards. So some mulligans on both sides. We'll see if both players can cobble together a competitive draw.
Yeah, we've seen quite a few mulligans from the rally deck. It's not always easy to make your mana come online with these 4-color mana bases.
So Canopy Vista for both players. For Owen, a basic Swamp and no pass.
Doesn't look like there's a lot of action in Owen's hand. He'll have a turn 3 play. Looks like a choice of Sifter and Nantuko Husk.
Yeah, I think Rally, Sifter, Husk, and Lands is what he's sitting on.
Not the worst.
No, but it may match up poorly against Brad. He has a Jace turn 2 here. So despite his mull to 5, this card, uncontested, should do a lot of work game 1.
Yep, Jace, for as much as we talk about Collected Company and Rally, on turn 2, Jace is exactly where you want to be.
Now, we saw Michael Majors 2 rounds ago play a mirror, in which, despite losing the Jace war, he more or less just beat up his opponent with Nantuko Husk. With Husk and Sifter, maybe Owen can follow a similar script.
Right, yeah. We were talking about how Majors was just making do with the tools he had available. Owen, of course, no slouch, the #1 rated player in the world. He's certainly able to navigate a game, even if he might be down on some resources.
So Jace is the play for Carpenter. Had to get basic Island to cast that on curve. It has left him without black mana for the time being. Now we go over to Owen. His mana was very well set up. For him, it's more of a question of what cards does he have.
Right.
Looks like it'll be a fetch for the basic Island.
In all likelihood, you would lead on the Sifter over the Husk.
More damage?
Yeah, more damage. You get 2 bodies into play. Owen won't need the Scion to generate any mana, but it's a consideration in a lot of games.
He will start on the Catacomb Sifter. It'll bring a Scion along as we go back to Carpenter. Draw here is a copy of Grim Horror Specs. So Brad will lead off the turn on a loot, finds a Sifter of his own. We'll see if he has that 3rd land. He may not. Looks like he's discarding Eiley or Husk. He's got a lot of tools here. Discards Husk. Changes his mind. We'll just...
It's a tough spot.
Eiley hits the bin. So his hand, he doesn't have the land yet. He'll play Elvish Visionary, see if he can hit it. Does not, finds Collected Company. That's a pass.
It's the opposite of a land.
It's not, but if you look at the... Right. It is. So if you look at the tools here, Brad has all the pieces. I believe he has Husk, Sifter, Collected Company. There's a lot of pieces in play here for Brad if he can get the lands to cast them.
Right. Given time, he has some great ability to set up. Still has the Jace active to keep looting to try to find that land so he can start casting these spells. And has 2 creatures in his graveyard already to Owen 0.
Owen swings both creatures. Brad puts Elvish Visionary, looks like in front of Sifter and not the Scion token. So Visionary dies. Okay, it was in front of the Scion.
Yeah, get that point off the board.
Here's Nantuko Husk.
And trading with the Scion makes the Husk slightly less impactful.
Now we're back to Brad. Starts with a loot. Draws another Collected Company. Has to find his discard. I do not believe he has the land just yet. So Husk hits the graveyard.
That Jace on turn 2, we talked about how important that is. More important being able to follow up and cast your spells.
How long before this land shortage for Brad knocks him out of the game?
One more turn and the Jace will be flipping. So it depends how much more Owen can commit to the board, and the extra Husk matters, but just 2 copies of Rally in hand.
All right, so Owen played another Catacomb Sifter. His remaining cards are just, you mentioned it, 2 rallies. Brad loots again. He still does not have a land.
Jeez, you know, flipping the Jace, there's nothing to flash back. You can bubble one of these creatures, but the Jace is not safe here.
No, maybe he plays a second Jace. He just needs to find these lands. Jace will plus, shrink down the Sifter. Maybe, yeah, it's okay. It's going to be Sidisi's Faithful. So just nice 0-4 wall. Thought about exploiting it, but no, this is fine.
Yeah, it can just jump in front of one of the Husks and protect the Jace for a turn.
So we go back to Owen. Now, at this point, we might be worried, if we're on Brad's side, about Owen simply using a rally to make a large Nantuko Husk and win the game.
Yeah, not a lot of food available just yet, but it doesn't take too much more. He's at 13.
Right, so 5 creatures you could sack. If one Husk gets through, you can sack Sifter Husk, rally for 3, get back Sifter Husk, Scion, sack all 3. That's 5 creatures. So it is 12 damage here. It means if Brad draws a fetch land, he can't use it. Here's a swing with both Husks. Seeing if Owen's going to go for that play. He gets to scry a bunch while he does this too.
Yeah, so
I'm a fan.
Owen's options on this block are sacrifice no creatures, just connect for 2. Sacrifice 1 Husk to the other to kill the Faithful, or the other way to get in 4 points. Given that there's only 2 rallies and all he can really do is pressure Carpenter's life total.
How do you feel about the play where he's just he sacks at least 2 creatures, deals damage, and then rallies?
Yeah, we could just go for the big swing on that unblock Husk here.
These Husks are going at Brad, not at the Planeswalker also.
Right. I think I like connecting for 12 here. You know, Brad's left with the Sidisi's Faithful, but you get a bunch of scry triggers with this Catacomb Sifter.
Yeah, and I suppose he doesn't. I mean, yeah, it would really take his board apart. If he finds a Zulaport Cutthroat, then he can leave that on top and kill Brad.
Right.
Let's see if he can do it. Looks like Owen's going to fetch here. That to me makes me think he's going to play this rally.
Yeah, it seems like it's rallying time. Getting that fetch out of the way so that you're able to scry with that 1 land out of the deck.
All right, let's see how much damage Owen's going to push.
Yeah, also won't be shuffling after his scry triggers resolve.
1 sack. Husk goes down to a 4-4.
Well, he found what he wanted pretty quick.
Pretty quick. 6-6. Uh-oh, that's dangerous. Here's a rally for 3. 2 creatures and a Scion. 8-8, 10-10, 12-12. Brad down to 1.
And if that is a Cutthroat, there's no way out of this for Brad because there's a Husk in the graveyard already. You can rally for that, get the Cutthroat in play. Owen is a mana short of just casting both, but there's the Husk in play already. Brad has to deal with that as step 1.
Well, Brad drew a land. It's just a fetch land. That's the problem here. So he'll play a Jace. He will plus his Planeswalker on the Nantuko Husk. And what does Owen draw? Is it Cutthroat? Collected Company. He'll take that one. Here we go.
Yeah,
Top
odds,
6 cards.
Odds
Sifter,
not bad.
Sifter, Jace. Okay, Brad is not dead right now, but Reflector Mage too. It is close.
Can get rid of one of these blockers.
2 Sifters is going to be the call from Owen.
Yeah, with your opponent on 1, those Scions, they matter quite a bit.
Yeah, untapping with 5 attackers may be too much for Brad. And by me, I mean it probably
It's 100% too much.
He needs to make a lot of blockers. Well, he will start by -2-0ing a Sifter. Okay, 1 creature taken care of. Ooh, we're tapping Jace. That's dangerous.
Well, we can turn it into a Planeswalker and then bubble another creature.
Ooh, all right. Or we could just concede. So game 1 over to Owen Turtenwald.
Yeah, there was just too much going on there. That was not a winnable board state.
A tough spot for Brad Carpenter. On a mull to 5 on the draw, keeps a hand with a lot of the creature pieces he needs for the puzzle, but not the lands, and it takes him too long to find them.
Yeah, and his Jace was so rude. It had so many opportunities to give him a land, but it just never did. I think 3 or 4 loots and just bricking on lands for that many turns.
All right, well, we're going to go over to the sideboards of the players. I want to talk about the simplicity of the Brad Carpenter sideboard here. So I have registered many 4-4-4-3 sideboards. Usually it's because I'm playing a combo deck, and I just don't have much to board. So it's 4x this hate card, 4x this hate card, 4x this hate card, and then, well, I guess 3 of the worst ones because I can't play 4. Now, he's played a set of Anafenzas, a set of Siege Rhinos. We hardly ever see that in Rally. A set of Dispels, and then 3 cuts. I could see a case for up to 15 cards here.
Yeah, so the thing about this sideboard here, I haven't had the opportunity to pick Carpenter's brains, but it's clear that he's kind of a transformational sideboard into an Obzon aggro kind of shell where you just want to jam Siege Rhinos. And when we're talking about players liking to trim Rally in the mirror, this could very well just be the matchup for Rhinos. You want to win on board, how about a 4-5 with the Lightning Helix attached?
All right, so Brad Carpenter is currently in 5th place in our Players' Championship race. He mentioned here how a top 8 finish could put him into 3rd. We're going to learn a little bit about Brad Carpenter. So 23, he comes from St. Petersburg, Florida. He has 3 Open Series top 8s so far. Still looking for that first win. But he's the lead singer of a pop punk band outside of Magic. Also a big fan of fantasy football.
FF Fanatic, perhaps?
Perhaps.
An analog to Brad Nelson's FF Freak.
Well, as Magic player is not a bad comparison to have made.
Final Fantasy is slightly different from fantasy football.
Yeah, FF Fanatic would stand for fantasy football. You play fantasy football?
No. I would be so very lost. I do watch the show The League, but I watch it the same way I watch every other comedy. I dissect the body of the joke and just assume that the punchline makes sense, but I just have no idea what they're talking about ever.
So with the win here, Brad Carpenter looks to top 8. That will be 15 SCG points. That's enough to put him into 3rd place in the standings. With a loss, he likely falls down to top 32, maybe top 16, so he's looking at 6 to 10 points. Now, that's still enough to gain on other players. So the players who did not day 2 got 1. So Andrew Tenjum, he's the person he has to catch, gets 3 or 4 on the day. So with a loss here, Brad will make up 2 to 6 points of coverage. It'll make it close. But with a win into the top 8, he should move into a Players' Championship slot.
Oh yeah, very big matchup here for Brad. Being down a game against Owen Turtenwald cannot feel good. I'm excited to see if this is the Siege Rhino matchup and how that pans out.
Brad Carpenter taking a mulligan. He was on 5 cards last game. Difficult spot to be here.
Really hoping that he can hang on 6.
Updates across the board on these win-ins. Tom Ross down a game on our backup feature match. We'll get to that if we can. Currently, he's playing against Anthony Eason on the backup feature.
It's a pretty high-profile match as well.
Yeah, we have some great Magic here. Kent Caterici in the background. He and Noah Strassler battling for a top 8 slot. We'll get you as much of the Magic as we can from these matches. For Owen Turtenwald, up a game here in the Rally Mirror.
Looking to break his on-camera curse for the weekend. Sitting at 11-3, all 3 of those losses on camera.
All right, Brad, scries to the top on the play. And we're underway for game 2. These post-board mirrors are hugely interesting. I'm really interested in how Bradley sideboarded here. I mentioned those, a full set of Rhinos, Anafenzas, Dispels. Like I said, I could see 4 Anafenza, 4 Dispel, 3 Cut. That's all somewhat reasonable here.
He's picked up a Dispel for the turn, so we're live for the full 15. We'll keep you updated on the number of sideboard cards Brad draws throughout the match.
You'd have to think that Anafenza and Dispel are coming in, right?
Right.
The question is how deep we're going. Brad's play for the turn, Elvish Visionary. Those have stayed.
If you assume that Owen is on Anafenzas of his own, then the Murderous Cuts are appealing, though I have to imagine that the one in the main deck actually came out here.
You'd wait to see Anafenza before boarding them in?
Right, you already have Reflector Mage and Sidisi's Faithful to deal with them.
How much does Faithful stay in the mirrors, though?
You know, that's a good question. I suppose that's another question of how much you're concerned about something like Anafenza out of your opponent.
Sure, that makes sense. Owen will see Brad's Elvish Visionary play one of his own. We go back over to Carpenter. Right now, both players just cantripping, filling up the board and graveyard. So pace it for a late game fight. Mana online for Brad this game. That was one of his troubles last game. And we see Catacomb Sifter from Carpenter.
Curving 2 into 3. Solid start.
Yeah, it's more than he was able to do last round. Last round he had the turn 2 Jace. So despite his mull to 5, things were looking up for Carpenter, and then took a nasty turn. See, despite loots each turn, he did not ever make it to that third land.
Slightly different mana bases, but mirror on creatures in this game so far.
Yeah. Oh, and matching the Sifter with a Sifter of his own. This frequently seems to be the case in these rally matchups. No good attacks on either side.
Right. Let's see if Carpenter casts a Siege Rhino this turn. I don't have any idea if this is the matchup for that strategy, but I would like to see it happen.
If Brad just starts jamming Siege Rhinos,
yeah.
What would happen? Yeah. I would think if Brad is playing Siege Rhinos and Owen is playing Collected Companies at the same point on the curve, Owen's ahead.
I'm inclined to agree. Having both in your deck, though, there's something to be said to that. You also can't dispel a Siege Rhino.
All right, we'll see where Carpenter goes. Looks like he has some Visionaries, Nantuko Husk, and Dispel in hand. So he can continue to cantrip with these Visionaries, or he can get the Husk started. It will be Nantuko Husk. He will leave up the blue mana for Dispel.
Yeah, I like getting Husk online when I have a Catacomb Sifter in play.
I agree.
Also not really digging anything this turn, so the Visionary is not a huge value play.
Yeah, there's a choke on Brad's green mana that could be a concern. He only can play one Visionary a turn. If he draws something like Collected Company or another card, it'll put further pressure on the green.
Right. Not in a position where he has to cast 2 Visionaries in a turn, but that was one consideration to cast the green spell over the black spell.
So we'll see if Owen matches pace. He does have an Nantuko Husk of his own. Instead, he will just pass the turn. You know.
So he just doesn't have anything.
Yeah, he has all lands. I'm sure that's what Brad's thinking. There's going to be one blue up from here on out.
Yeah, Brad's pretty happy to have that Dispel.
Draw from Brad is Catacomb Sifter. It's a good card here, but as another green spell, it's lacking. Owen swings with the Husk. Or rather, Brad swings with the Husk. Owen will block with Elvish Visionary. Before damage, he's going to fetch.
Wants to get that fetch out of the way. Minimally, he's going to be getting a Scry trigger from the Sifter from this block, so you want to shuffle the deck now.
You'd hate to Scry and then crack the fetch land.
Right. Similar to play patterns in Modern with Serum Visions. Go ahead and fetch first and then Scry later.
Some heads-up sequencing here from Turtenwald. And now he'll try for Collected Company. That'll be dispelled.
Something I was curious about, Owen had the option to sacrifice a Scion to cast that Collected Company and bluff Dispel. It's probably a pretty minimum expected value play, though.
Yeah, I mean, so he bluffs it, but does that mean Brad doesn't call?
Right, and Owen's not a player that's known for bluffing either.
He'd rather play it straight up.
Yeah.
And just play better.
I mean, he definitely gets good results doing it his way, so.
Another Collected Companies is in Owen's hand. Brad followed up with Elvish Visionary, drew a card. I believe he drew another Dispel off it, which would be pretty timely if it's the case.
Yeah, with the Collected Company in Turtenwald's hand, that one's going to be big.
So Owen will fetch with Evolving Wilds for a Plains. Gives him now triple white, so more than enough for Rally the Ancestors. We'll see if he goes for a Collected Company here to force Brad to show another Dispel. He will not. This time Collected Company drawn for Carpenter.
Yeah, and with the Scion, he has access to enough mana to cast the Company and leave up Dispel.
Brad will swing the Nantuko Husk. And this is something we've seen in these mirrors. Nantuko Husk actually does a good job of bullying your opponent.
Indeed.
Collected Company for Owen, you know, has kind of been the tournament. Owen's Collected Companies have all been underwhelming. Brad will collect, so Owen gets Cutthroat and Elvish Visionary. Now Brad is going to Company in response.
Possibly looking to Reflector Mage away some of these blockers, or at least just get the Cutthroat off the board before a ping happens.
How good is this? Anafenza and Elvish Visionary. Wow. Let's see if Owen wants to block now.
No surprises seeing the Anafenza coming in. Still waiting on a Siege Rhino.
So, all right. I have a question. If Brad has Anafenza in his deck, I feel like he would want to wait until Owen declared blockers before companying here, as Owen would be much more... Now Owen knows he has no death triggers, no cutthroats, no sifters. It's possible Owen would have made a much worse block.
Right, and I think that the motivation is Brad was looking more for Reflector Mage, happened to find Anafenza.
Okay.
So you end up giving Owen information this way, though removing particular blockers is something that you want to try for.
All right, heads up play there for Brad then. So now we go back to Turtenwald. All right. So top 8 on the backup match. Anthony Eason 2-0 defeats Tom Ross. For Eason, it will be a top 8. For Tom, likely drops into top 16, and his tournament will be over. Owen, it'll be Elvish Visionary. I'll pass turn. He will have Reflector Mage and Nantuko Husk.
Getting that Anafenza off the board is definitely big.
Absolutely. It's interesting here. So Brad is ahead on a lot in hand. He has far more cards than Owen, but the board just seems to have reached this stalemate. Both players are at 16 and have the same copies of just about every creature.
Yeah, this is a difficult game to navigate. It's just, how do you ever make a profitable attack? You can really attack with Husk if you want to, but if your opponent chump blocks, it just makes their Rally the Ancestors better on a future turn. You have to find out if you're the player that should be attacking with Husk or if even either player should be playing that role.
Right, it's just liable to get chump blocked. Is that something you want, I guess is the question.
Right.
So no land for Carpenter, so he's going to tap 3 and sack a Scion for a 4th. Looks like to cast Collected Company, very clearly representing a Dispel. See what he can find off it. More Collected Companies. This is going to matter because it means that the other companies are all at the bottom of his deck, at least until he shuffles.
Right.
He'll put a Reflector Mage into play, and that was the only creature he found.
Yep, another thing that matters. Only getting half of the full potential value of the spell. So I don't think if I'm Brad, I make any attacks this turn. I think next turn when I'm able to recast the Anafenza, I reconsider that position. Probably start attacking when you have that creature in play.
Yeah, and the attack wouldn't have meant much. You see here, Owen on end step is just sacking Elvish Visionary to scry anyway. So an attack would just tap your Nantuko Husk. Owen had the chump block all set up. This is all currently, there's a Reflector Mage trigger targeting the Nantuko Husk. This is all with that trigger on the stack.
Right. Owen thinking about just how aggressively he needs to scry here and how good it is even if he finds a particular spell. He already has a Rally the Ancestors in his hand.
Right, so maybe he's looking for a Dispel to go with the Rally of the Ancestors?
Something like that. He's also aware that Carpenter has Anafenza coming down next turn.
Right, so if he's going to make a play, he's going to have to make one this turn. And it looks like that's what Owen's doing. Really wants to find some backup for Rally.
Right, doesn't fully commit, leaves these 2 creatures on the board, which are serviceable blockers for a non-zero amount of time. Though, if Brad gets to put Anafenza into play uncontested, they won't be able to make it to the graveyard ever.
All right, now here's the swing from Husk. Owen, all his scries were to the bottom, so we don't know if he's found a Dispel of his own just yet. Owen's going to block the Husk with Zulaport Cutthroat. There's a drain. He gets one more scry. Looks at his hand. It may not be the Dispel he wants, but maybe something like a second Rally would give him pause here.
Earlier in the turn before Owen sacrificed all those creatures, I didn't like Brad attacking this turn, though now we're in range for a Reflector Mage to just stop Owen from being able to block and the Husk being potentially lethal next turn. It's a bit shy just yet, but it will be more damaging going forward. Also, the other creatures can start attacking.
So the card Owen kept on top was the second Rally. This won't matter even if Brad Carpenter does play Anafenza. I believe one of the cards Owen can rally back is a Reflector Mage. So on that turn, he'll get to bounce the Anafenza and he'll get all his triggers. He has Bradley at 12.
Right, and last turn Brad did represent that Dispel. I don't think he has it in his hand.
Yeah, he's got to get Owen to respect it, though. The problem is that Owen is respecting it and is playing around it.
Right.
And then when Owen casts it and finds that Brad doesn't even have a Dispel, well, then it's off to the races.
Right, so even if it turns out now with the 2 rallies, if the one doesn't resolve, the next one is going to be lethal. Just casting 2, I don't see how casting 2 rallies with a Sacrifice Outlet and a Cutthroat is not going to be enough damage.
So here's the first Rally of the Ancestors. All the creatures come into play. Most importantly, here's Reflector Mage targeting Anafenza the foremost.
Yeah, and so there's 6 cards here, plus an Eldrazi Scion, a Zulaport Cutthroat, and an Atuko Husk, and another Rally in Owen's hand. This looks to be the game.
All right, so 1 draw off an Elvish Visionary. Another one.
It's not over till it's over, but I think that Owen broke his curse for the weekend.
So what Owen's doing here right now, actually, this is kind of neat. I don't think he needs to, but he's holding his second Elvish Visionary draw trigger on the stack, and he's sacking cards to scry.
Yeah, presumably digging for a Dispel because he knows if this Rally resolves. Maybe for some weird reason Brad let the first one resolve because it's not lethal on its own.
Right. He's trying to find another Dispel, and then he has the draw immediately to take it.
Right.
That's just a neat play here. Each of these has a Zulaport Cutthroat trigger associated with it. Now, with a land in hand, I don't believe he has it, Owen could scry another Cutthroat to the top. He's got a very large Nantuko Husk here. It looks like that's going to block.
Yeah, and that Owen has no intention for that Husk to be staying in play long enough to be exiled by the Rally anyway.
Now Bradley will sack creatures and start to scry. Owen sacrificed 3 creatures so far to the Husk, so his is an 8/8. And Bradley's going to sack some creatures, but I think Owen will just keep fighting. There's no reason not to.
Right. He wants all these creatures to hit the bin so they can trigger his Cutthroat so he gets enough points to make this lethal.
Leaving that Scion in play, it's not going to get exiled. So Brad Carpenter's Husk hits the bin. Now the board evens out. Also in top 8 now, Noah Strassler defeats Kent Ketter. Noah makes it into the top 8. Congratulations to him, maybe with the overall 1 seed at that. Great tournament on Noah's side. For Kent Ketter, a 9-0 start on day 1 is going to fall just short of the top 8. He'll end up at 11-4, likely a top 16 finish.
Owen picks up another Zulaport Cutthroat for the turn. With the Eldrazi Scion still in play, is able to cast Rally for 3 on top of it, and that is the match.
All right, so Owen Turtenwald breaks the camera streak, gets the win right when he needs it, 12-3. That will put him into the top 8. Congratulations to Owen Turtenwald. For Brad Carpenter, a very close